When we first talked about this idea of showing this film as part of our effort to launch this new campaign, somebody kicked this idea around of coming here and doing it in this big room, and I said, no, well, you know, we get 30 or 40 people to come see a movie about dams and rivers, we'll be lucky. So thankfully wiser heads prevailed, and you guys came out on a snowy cold night, icy cold out there. So thanks for your interest, thanks for your concern for rivers and dams and fish. And it's exciting, it's encouraging, thank you. Happy to have you here. Oh, it's up. I said we have a few minutes while we get this up, but it's working. I'm going to try to take some of that story and relate it to Long Island, but it's a powerful film. I hope you're as moved by it as I am. I've seen it a few times. It gets me every time. There's some great lines there. Especially that one scene about with the salmon in the base of the dam. I wrote this down. Banging their head against the wall of concrete, trying to go upstream. I just find that very powerful. It's something that I'm going to get to that happens here in Long Island. Just to get this out of the way, for those of you, I think I heard somebody say, just anybody making plans to get out to the garage tonight, look for some ropes and some old paint. And we can't condone the vandalism, but we like the enthusiasm. Yeah, we want to take down some dams for sure, but we got to go through some hoops first. So, let's see if we get this to work. All right, we don't have any of these on Long Island. That's the Glen Canyon Dam. But we have a lot of these. There was a scene there where Bruce Babbitt, the former Secretary of the Interior, said that there was 75,000 dams across the country over 3 feet. If you notice carefully on that map they showed, there were no dots on Long Island. It was basically empty because they don't really count our dams as dams. They're just not big enough to sort of be on their radar screen. But as I get to, as far as our fish are concerned, that might as well be a 70-foot wall. There's a lot of dams on Long Island because there's a lot of rivers on Long Island. The history here, this is a beautiful digital elevation map that was done by Professor Brett Bennington at Hofstra University. And as the glaciers sat here and created the outwash plains, they carved all these channels across the plains as that water was rushing off the glaciers. And those channels still exist, where they exist and where they meet the groundwater is where our tributaries lie. And you can see from these maps how many there are. And you guys know, driving around Long Island, you drive Montauk Highway, it's bridge after bridge and dam impoundment after impoundment. There's a lot of them out there. So we're left with these beautiful, mostly small, groundwater-fed, cold tributaries. And we don't have any habitat for these fish. We don't have any salmon here. Our rivers were too small. But we have fish that are just like these. These are essentially our salmon, river herring. These are fish with almost the exact same lifestyle. These are fish that spend most of their lives out in the ocean, in the continental shelf, and they, like salmon, are trying to migrate upstream to spawn. And as you can see from this picture, they're very capable swimmers. They can swim through very strong currents. They have a very high burst swimming speed, but they're not jumpers. So that 3-foot dam, that even 1 or 2 foot dam, is a barrier for these fish if there's not enough water for them that they can swim through. We also have American eels. American eel have the opposite lifestyle. They all hatch out in the ocean, and then they swim back upstream to spend their entire lives in fresh water, in our tributaries, before, after 30 or 40 years, they mature and they go back out to the ocean to spawn and die. They are also very capable swimmers and can in fact climb, but the dams cause them troubles too, and give them, cut down their migratory success rates. And then finally, the brook trout. We saw trout mentioned in the film. We don't have rainbows here. Rainbows are not native to this part of the country. This is our native trout. And then we have a representative from Trout Unlimited here tonight, George Costa. We're trying to bring these fish back too. These fish don't fully split their life cycle between fresh and salt water, but they are what are called semi-diagamous, so they live and hatch mostly in fresh water, but they can go out to the ocean, or out to the estuary, not the ocean, to feed, which is part of why they get so big here on the South Shore. And sea run brook trout were part of what made places like the Connecticut River popular fishing destinations, because these brook trout would go out there in the estuary, feed, get really big, and come back in to be caught. So again, these fish are not capable of jumping over dams, and they are permanently blocked by our off-the-radar dams here in Long Island. Why do we have so many dams? Well, as the island was developed, we had lots of need for powering grist mills, so there were a lot of them built for grist mills, but also for cranberry bog production and ice harvesting. The kids here will have no idea why we had to harvest ice, because there were no refrigerators or freezers, but there are very few of the 120 plus tributaries on Long Island that were not impounded. And of those, there were very few that were impounded once. Most of the dams on the island were impounded many times, 3, 4, 5 times is typical, but some more than a dozen times. Every one of these dams is a barrier to fish migration. So these are our migratory fish. How are they doing? Now, I have lots of charts and tables about their population studies. I don't have time to go into tonight, but I have a picture that I think tells a story. That's a river herring that is clearly frowning and sad. That's all you need to know. They're not happy. They're not doing well. There's other reasons. It's not just that they've lost habitat. There's lots of offshore bycatch issues, water quality problems. But from our perspective, trying to restore these fish to come back to Long Island tributaries, we need to give them access to spawning habitat. And that's really a question of getting them upstream into fresh water. Why do we care about these fish? You may say, you got these eels, they're not so attractive. You got these little foot-long river herring. What's the big deal? The big deal is that these fish are a very important part of our coastal ecosystem. The fact that they move from the ocean into the estuaries into the rivers, is part of why they're important, because they're transferring energy, ocean energy, upstream, and this is a small sampling of the things that feed on them. If you want to go out and catch striped bass or bluefish, you should care about these fish. If you want to go out and film, take pictures of seals or ospreys, you should care about these fish. They're a very central part of what makes Long Island's coastal ecosystem work. So what are we doing about it? We're launching this project on the Long Island River Revival Project. I'm going to try to go through this quickly. Just as an aside, there was one of our recent emails said the tonight was going to feature a film and a lecture. I'm assuring you I have no intentions of giving a lecture here tonight. I'm trying to rush through this, as I know it's a long program, but there's two key parts to our River Revival project. The first part is kind of a wonky document strategy, the restoration strategy. It runs 20 or 25 pages long. It gives lots of background on our migratory fish, details on the tools available, fish ladders, dam removals, things like that. And we've identified in every town on Long Island 2, 3, 4, sometimes 5 locations that we think are priority sites, that are places where we think these restoration projects should happen, where they're realistic sites, where the work can be done, and we've identified recommended actions for all of these locations. So the idea is to get this document in the hands of our municipal leaders, our citizen activists, and really it's a roadmap for restoring migratory fish across the island to levels that will help support this coastal ecosystem. And so what do we want to do? We want to take these dams and we want to do more of this. We want to get fish past these dams with fish ladders. This is an Alaskan steep pass. We want to build what are called nature-like fishways. This is a fish ladder on the Reconnect River out in Grangeville Park. So that there was a spillway there, that site, and now fish can swim right up that sort of creek-like fish ladder. And this is a scene we're trying to bring to Long Island. I mean, we're not going to get to our restoration goals with fish ladders and fishways. This is sort of the elephant in the room are the dams. We need to start talking about undoing this legacy of dams. Out west, they talk about removing dams that are generating power and helping irrigate farms. Our dams, we're not harvesting cranberries. We don't need to collect ice anymore, and we don't need power. We don't need grist mills. So these dams are legacy dams. Really, I mean, they have some purposes. They're parts of our community in many ways. People enjoy the views. There's some fishing and boating on them, but for the most part, they're not serving their original purpose. The other piece of this restoration project relates to not just fish passage, but the streams themselves. It's part of, I like to say, sort of bringing these streams back to the communities. So many of our tributaries have been, if not completely buried in places, fenced off, marginalized, and forgotten about. It's a very exciting project right up the road here in Bayshore at the First Baptist Church, where the church and the Islip Arts Council and some other community members, including the Barbash family, are looking at trying to create a garden there and then restore some of the stream side there and get rid of some of the invasive plants, renaturalize the stream, and we want to see more of these projects advanced around the island as well. So the second key component of the restoration strategy is this map, the River Revival Project map. We have mapped every tributary on the island, well, in Nassau and Suffolk counties at least. We've shown in red and green which segments of these tributaries are accessible to migratory fish and which sections are not. We've identified every existing planned or proposed reconnectivity project, and the places where the fish icons are show where these sort of remnant runs exist. In the film, they talked about the salmon coming back as soon as access was available to them. These fish are trying to get to optimal spawning habitat, but in places where they can't, they still spawn, they still try. Their success rates, of course, are much lower than they should be, so their population numbers continue to drop. But amazingly, in places, they're still out there. And we've been blocking rivers on Long Island for hundreds of years, and we still find these fish. We found 2 new runs last year in places where they weren't known to exist. So they're out there. Excuse me. And if we can find them, we can help them get to the habitat they need and rebuild their numbers. There's a lot of work went into this map. I just want to say this is not just Seatuck that did this. We have a group. This is we have a diadromous fish work group on Long Island. A lot of partners have been involved, primarily including the Peconic Estuary Program, Allison and her team, the Long Island Sound Study. So those are the 2 big national estuary programs, and many other organizations, including, I mentioned Trout Unlimited here tonight, the Nature Conservancy here tonight. And on our side, on Seatuck side, a shout out to our team, John Turner, Byron Young, and Maureen Dunn, who worked on this. And then the two young women, Stacy Rice and Jessica Ensman, who did the sort of detailed behind-the-scenes GIS work on this map. They put a lot of time into this. It's a beautiful effort. They are going to be happy not to hear from me for a few days or weeks with emails and texts that start with yikes or help or we've had a lot of communication over the past couple weeks trying to get this map ready. So thanks. Stacy is actually not here. She's upstate. They had 3 feet of snow, and I guess that's an excuse not to drive down to Long Island. But Jessica's here. Where's Jess? Oh, she's up top. Thank you, Jess. So we want you to go to this map and explore this map. Our website is at seatuck.org. Jess is going to try to she's going to pull up the website. I just want to quickly show you, if we can make this work, how to get into it. Yes, Jess, maybe not? All right, we'll forge ahead. Seatuck.org, we're going to have a banner there that says River Revival Project. It'll be very hard to miss. You'll have that picture of the fish. Click on that, and then there's sort of 2 portals to get in. One takes you directly to the map, and you can start exploring around and zoom in. And the idea is it will be a tool for people to learn about tributaries in their neighborhoods or places that they like to go hiking, and learn about the status of that tributary and how what Seatuck may have proposed and what might be possible to try to move some restoration projects forward. The other portal is called a story map, and that map, if you click on that, it gives you a lot of background about the fish and the rivers, and eventually leads you into the map. So if you know people who don't know a lot about this, if you can direct them to that story map, it'll give them all the background they need. So how can you guys help? So the first thing is just, get into the map, take a look, learn what you can about your tributaries in your neighborhood. The fish icons are the places on the island, there's 20 of them, where we know river herring are still coming in and trying to get upstream. There's probably more. I mentioned we found 2 last year. Our annual volunteer alewife survey starts today. Today's our first day. It runs March 15th through May 15th. And we have dozens of volunteers around the island going out and watching for these fish. We're trying to figure out where they are, when the runs start, and get an idea of how large the runs might be. We have a training, our last training coming up next week for this survey. If you want to get involved, at our facility over in Islip at the Scully Estate. It starts at 6:30. We'll go into a lot more detail about these fish and how you can participate. The purple stars on the map represent our priority sites. So those are the places where we've identified as what we think are the best places to advance projects to really build these runs. We need local champions for these places, and we're going to be pushing for these, but the more people that are out there talking about it, the better. Contact your elected officials and ask them to support this work. And I should point out, Legislator Tom Silmy is here, our only elected official to join us, and he's been a great supporter of Seatuck and champion of the environment. He's going to help us advance some of these projects around Suffolk County. And then finally, just get involved with Seatuck. Help us do more to revive Long Island's rivers. That's all I have. Thank you. Thanks for coming.